I'm Srinivas Gowda, working as assistant professor in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today, we'll discuss about SQL. What is SQL and what is history and what types of SQL, okay? We'll get started. SQL is nothing but structured query language. It is a language like any other language like Java, okay, Java or C++, something. It is language, and this language is used to talk to SQL, talk to database. Database could be anything like SQL, Oracle, MySQL, etc. So basically, SQL is nothing as a structured query language. In this today's topic, we'll discuss what is SQL, why we use SQL, brief history of SQL, types of SQL. In that we have DDL, DML. These are the types of SQL. Okay, we'll get started with each one of them in detail. Now, what is SQL? SQL is a database language designed for the retrieval and management of data in a relational database. So, as I said earlier, SQL is a language, the database language, which is used for retrieval and management of data in a relational database. So you have some data in your database. You have data in the database like SQL, Oracle, MySQL. And this SQL is a language used to interact with the database to provide you the required set of information. Okay. SQL is the standard language for database management. All the RDBMS systems like MySQL, my MS Access, Oracle, Sybase, PostgreSQL, SQL Server use SQL as a standard database language. If you see the diagram here, you have various databases like SQL Server, Oracle DB, and MySQL DB. These are three different types of databases. They are different flavors of databases. We have three flavors of databases. Those are, in this diagram, I'm showing you three examples, but there could be n number of databases. So we have a SQL Server database here, and we have Oracle database, and we have MySQL database. So a database will include some objects. Those objects can be tables, views, procedures, etc. Okay. Now, and we know that SQL is a language. Used to interact with the database. So SQL is the database language used to talk to the database. And apart from that, we have some more additions to the SQL language. Those are TSQL is used to interact for transact SQL. It means we need to perform some complicated stuff. We have to make use of TSQL. In the case of Oracle, we have to use PLSQL. That is programming language SQL. And in the SQL, for example, for MySQL, use MySQL. So I repeat, SQL language, structured query language, is a database language used for retrieval and management of the data in a relational database. Okay, this is a standard language used to interact with databases. The databases can be MySQL, SQL, Oracle, and etc. Okay, so Sybase, etc. So a database will include tables and other objects. The other objects could be views, procedures, functions. Those are the various objects available in the database. So your data is there in the database table, and we use the SQL language to communicate to these databases for retrieval of data. Suppose you have some information stored in database, like stored information stored in the database. We can make use of the SQL to extract the data from the tables and present to the user. Okay. Now, why we need to use SQL? Okay, what is SQL? Okay, we have seen that it is SQL is the structured query language used to interact with databases. Now we will see what are the further uses of the SQL. It helps users to access the data in the RDB system. That means you have the data in the database system. You have data in the database. So if you need to retrieve the data from the database tables, we have to make use of the SQL. So it helps the users. Suppose I am the user and the user who have access to the database. Now I can write some queries to fetch the data from the database table. Okay, it also helps you to describe the data. Okay, it helps you to describe the data. Suppose you have a student table, and student table will have many attributes like student name, roll number, all ticket number, rank, and etc. So we can describe the data by using the SQL. Okay, it helps. In the third point is it allows you to define the data in a database and manipulate that specific data. So we can do some manipulation of the data. Suppose we have some data, and we can manipulate the data. For example, a student is studying in the computer section, and he has scored some marks here. Yeah, he has scored some marks. So in the revaluation or the re-exam, he achieved a good marks. So we can update the specific data by using the manipulation. So we can manipulate the data available in the data. Suppose we have a student who got 90 marks. We have got 90 marks in a subject, and we can manipulate. We can write a small logic to make it to 95 or 96 based upon some criteria. That criteria will be defined by us. So if you want to make changes to database, we can also use SQL. With the help of SQL, you can create and drop databases and tables. So we know that a database is nothing but a combination of database objects. The database objects can be a table, a view, a procedure, function, etc. So we can, with the use of the SQL, we can create a database, we can drop a database, and we can drop a tables, and etc. Okay. And SQL also offers you to use the functions in a database, create a view, store procedures. So the other objects in the database could be tables. Then we have views. We have stored procedures. We have functions. We also have triggers. And etc. So these are the various objects in the database which we can create. And drop. Okay, drop tables, views, procedure, function, triggers, and etc. And you can also set permissions on a table, procedure, and views. So after creating tables, procedures, and views, and we can set permissions, so that when you set permissions, only those who have access to those tables can access the data, and remaining cannot access the data seeing in the database table. Suppose I have a table called as student. I don't want the student table to be seen by the user XYZ. That XYZ, when he tries to query the database tables, he will not be able to see the data. It says unauthorized access. Only those who have permissions on tables, procedure, and views will be able to access these tables. So if you don't give a permission, I'll not be able to see the data. I will not be able to see the data between these all objects. Any object, if you don't give permissions, you're not authorized. That means you don't have access. When you try to retrieve the data, it says invalid object. Okay. So this is the use of SQL. So I repeat, SQL is a language used to talk to database, and it also describes the data. It can manipulate the data. You can create and drop the databases, tables, etc. And also the various objects in the database could be tables, views, store procedures, functions, and triggers. So we can also place permissions. We can also set permissions on a tables, procedure, and views, so that those users who don't have access cannot access the data. Okay, now we'll see the brief history of SQL. Okay, we'll see the brief history of SQL. Okay, how SQL was evolved. So we know that SQL is a structured query language used to talk to databases, and it can describe the data, it can manipulate the data, it can be used to access the data. Now, history of SQL in the year 1970. In the year 1970, Dr. Edgar F. Tedcoat described the relational model for the database. So, like he is like the key person or the main person when talk about the database. We have to mention the name of code. That means code. It is Edgar F. Tedcoat. He also has defined some 12 rules for any database to follow. Those are the code rules. So in the 1970, he has developed a relational model for databases. In the 1974, structured query language appeared. This is in the year 1974. First version of structured query language is nothing as SQL. SQL is formed in the year 1974. In the year 1978, IBM released a product called System R. Then, in 1986, IBM developed the prototype of relational database, which is standardized by ANSI, which is nothing but American National Standard Institute. So, IBM developed a prototype of relational database, which is standardized by ANSI, American National Standard Institute. The first ever version of SQL was launched in 1989. The first ever version of SQL was launched in the year 1989. Okay. In 1999, after 10 years, we have SQL 3 launched the features like triggers, object oriented, etc. In the SQL 23 version, we have support for Windows XML related features. In the version of 2006, we have support for XML query language. And in the SQL 2011, we have the improved support for temporal databases. So, what is a temporal database? That means there will be some temporary databases on your server, so that when you perform a long operations, when you perform a long, suppose you write a query which takes a lot of time to execute, that execution will be stored in the temporary database, that is temporal databases. So your database will have some temporary database that is called TempDB. In that we can store our temporary tables. Okay, everything will be there in the temporary database. So this is a brief history of the SQL. We have to remember 1970 of Edgar Code described relational model for databases, and he also has given 12 rules. So first ever version was launched in 1989. In 1999, SQL 3 was launched, and the subsequent years 2003, 2006, and 2011, various features are being added. So this is a brief history of the SQL. Now we'll see the types of SQL. Okay, we'll see the types of SQL. So basically, our SQL queries are divided into 5 parts. First is the DDL, that is data definition language. Then we have DML, data manipulation language. Then we have data control language. Then we also have transaction control language, and we have data query language. So these are the 5 types of SQL we have. In SQL, we have 5 types of queries. All these are queries. Only that we need to write our queries. So we need to write a queries. Those queries will broadly be divided into 5 types. First is the data definition language, DDL, data definition language. Then we have data manipulation language. First is the data definition language. Data definition, that means you'll be defining your data there. You'll be defining the definition, like how should my table be like that? How should my table be there? That is data definition, DDL, data definition language. Then we have data manipulation language. That means we need to manipulate your data. Then we have to use the commands of DML. And we also have data control language. Means when you want to control, then we have to use data control language called DCL. Then we have transaction control language. In this we have two commands. Then basically it talks about how can we control the transactions in a database. Okay, how can we control the transactions? That will be dealt in the DCL, and we have the data query language. Okay, now we'll see each one of them in detail. Now we'll see each one of these in detail. So we have basically five types: data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, how the data will be controlled. Then we have transaction control language, TCL, and at last data query language. We have only one command in the data query language. Now we will see each one in detail. At a high level, this is how your diagram is going to go. In the first, I said we have various commands. We have five types of things. First, so we have DDL, TCL, DML, TCL, DQL. So these are the five types of SQL queries we have in the system. Now, under each of these, we have various commands are there. So when you talk about the data definition languages, here data is not actually directly inserted. First, in order to insert data, we need some database objects, right? Those objects can be tables, procedures, views, etc. So first we'll create the base or the foundation. That foundation is called as the DDL, data definition language. So DDL means data definition language. Means here we'll be defining our data, how our data should be there. For example, we have a student table. So first we need to identify what are the various entities, attributes we need to have in the student table. A student will have a student name, student roll number, then his mobile number, his branch, and etc. So that we have to define. So we have to create. So in order to store a data of the student table in a student table, we have to create a database. In the database, we need to have some tables. So we can by using the DDL commands, we can do the following operations. That are DDL. We can create a database, can create a table. Same way, we can drop a database. We can drop a table. We can drop a procedure, etc. And we also alter is nothing but making changes to structure. Suppose I have created a table called student. I have created a table called student with 25 student name storing 20 characters. I have created a table initially, a student table taking about 20 characters. So my name can be 20 characters. Suppose after few days, I see that I got admission of a student whose name is more than 25 characters. Initially, I made 20. Now I have got a student whose name is 25 characters. That means 20 is what you have, but you should be able to insert 25 characters name, because his name is 25. So you cannot truncate, you cannot cut off 5 characters, because his name will be incomplete. So in that you cannot drop and recreate all the database once again, because you already have some data with you, few students. So in order to allow this particular student data to be entered, is not allowing, because you have 20 characters length in your 20 characters length in the field, but your name is 25. So in this case, you cannot insert this data into data directly. In that case, we'll have to use the alter command. We have to use the alter command to make changes to the structure. So alter command is used to make alter command is used to make changes to the system. And similarly we have truncate. So truncate is the other command. Truncate is to remove all the data from the table. So you have some data in a table, and by using this truncate command, you can remove all the data from the table. That is truncate. And we also have something called as rename. We also have some rename. So rename is nothing but to save as. Suppose I have not exactly save as. I have a table called as student. I want to make it as students. So I have a table called student. I want to make it as students. So I want to make it students from student. So in this case, I have to use the rename command. So rename command is used to modify the name of the object. The name of the name of the object is student. Now I am making it students. So these are the 5 commands we have in the data. That is, we can create an object. We can create an object. Object means table, database, etc. We can drop. Then we can alter. Then to remove all the data, it means emptying the object. I have a table with 100 records. When I use a truncate, all the 100 records will be removed from the database. Then I also have the rename. I also have the rename option of, when I use this rename option, my data object will be modified. Name will be modified. By example, if it is student, I'll be making it as students. So this is the first command. Next, we'll go to the second. In the diagram, it is the third, but actually we will see the third in the diagram was DML. It is nothing but DML is data manipulation language. In this data manipulation language, actually we'll be dealing with the data. In the first case, we'll be dealing with the structure of the structure of the object. The structure of the object is we'll create a table. After creating table, we have to insert data in the database table. For that, we use the DML commands. So we have here 3 commands. Insert is used to insert data into database table. So I have a student table. I need to enter a student details. I want to enter student details, student name, student roll number, etc. By using the insert command, I will be inserting the data by using the insert command. And I also have an update command. When I say update command, it is to updating the database values. Suppose I have update values means, see, initially I inserted the student mobile number as XYZ. Now later he has modified his mobile number. So I need to go to the student table. I need to write a small statement to make the mobile number from A to B. So initially it was I inserted mobile number as A. I inserted mobile number as A. Now, after few days, the student comes and tells that my phone number has been changed. So, what I will do is that I'll go to the record where this is stored. I'll make it as B. That is, this operation is called update operation. Is called the update operation. Then I also have the delete operation. So delete is to remove a record from the table. You have a database table having some rows there, and you need to remove one record. If you need to remove one record, you can use the delete command. So in order to remove one or more records, we can use the delete. So your delete operation is going to remove one or more records. Truncate is also a type of removing, but it removes the entire data. So we'll talk about in detail what is about delete and what is about truncate differences. This is the second. The third, we have DCL, that is data control language. See, data control language. This is nothing but in this type. This is data control. It means you want your data to be controlled by some persons. So we have to grant some rights. So grant is the keyword. Grant is the keyword used to give access to some users. So I grant rights to a user called as Srinivas. Only Srinivas can be able to see an object student. Suppose I have a student. Table. I give access to Srinivas. Now only Srinivas can access the student table. If some person called Gowda tries to access the system, try to access the student table, he will not be able to access because he doesn't have access. Only Srinivas has the rights. So that is, grant is used to give permissions to an object. Okay, and after granting, suppose you want to remove that permissions, we have to use the revoke command. So revoke command is used to remove the given permissions. So grant is to give rights to some user for some set of objects. I can grant access to a table, a procedure, etc. Okay. After granting, only that particular user will be able to access the data. If I don't want to continue that access, I can revoke the permissions. This revoke means removing the permissions back. Removing the permissions back is the DCL, data control language. Next, we go to the fourth point. Fourth point here is TCL. It is transaction control language. Means how your transactions are controlled. So what is a transaction? A group of steps. See, a transaction T means is a transaction when it involves some steps here. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So all these 3 will be a part of transaction. In this transaction, I have 3 steps here. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So when I say transaction TT, it means I go to ATM to remove some amount from my account. First step is to withdraw 500 rupees. Then after that, your amount will be dispersed through ATM. You'll get the amount. And the third stage, your account will be debited by 500 because you have withdrawn 500 rupees. This is a transaction. So when you perform this transaction, here we have to use few commands like commit, rollback, and save point. So in the transaction control language, we have 3 commands. Those are commit, rollback, and save point. So what is a commit? Means saving to the database permanently. Commit is saving to the database permanently is the commit. Rollback is undoing the changes. Suppose you have made some changes to database and you want to undo it. So we have to use the rollback. Save point is a intermediary saving to some point. Suppose I have a series of 1 to 10 steps. If I say commit here, entire data is committed. Means everything is saved. If I say rollback here, my database change will be undo. That is rollback. See, save point is at this particular point. I'll say save point A. When I say save point A, till this point your data is stored. Till this point data is stored. When I say rollback here, 5, 6, 7, 8 will be rolled back till the point 4. Your database is stored. That is save point. Save point is the intermediate saving at some point. That is the save point. So commit is to save permanently database. To undo the changes, we have to use rollback, and we also have save point to saving it to a intermediary point. And at last we have only one command in the DQL, that is select statement. That is select statement is a command used to talk to database to get some to get a values. Suppose I need student marks from a student table. I'll say please provide me marks by using select statement. When you use a select statement, it is requesting something from the database. Select is to requesting something from the database. So at a high level, these are the 5 types of SQL commands. First we have seen that we have 5 types here. 5 SQL basic types. Those are DDL, then DML, data control language, then we have transaction control language, and at last we have data query language. In the DDL we have 5 commands. This is used to define structures. That means defining the data. So we have create, or drop, alter, rename, and truncate. And in the DML we have 3 commands: insert, update, and delete. And we also have 2 commands in data control language. Those are grant and revoke. And in the TCL we have 3 commands: commit, rollback, and save point. At last we have only one statement in the select statement. So now we'll say at high level, the data definition language is used to define the structure or the schema. So here we have 5 types. The first type is the create. In this create statement, we used to define the database structure. For example, I can create a database table, create database name. So create database name is university. Create database student. Create table name is student. When I create a table, I should have some attributes. A table should have some name. After name, I need to have some attributes like student number, roll number, etc. So those will be the student roll number, name, phone number, attributes. So everything will have some data. We'll discuss data types. So a table will have columns and rows. Columns are the various attributes. Column name is student name. So what it is in the name, can you store integer? No. So for name, you have to use only the character fields. For age, you have to use only integer. So same way we will have some data types. Column name, table will have table name, then column name. So column name is student. I'll be storing only the characters. Column name is age. I'll be storing only the age in integers. Okay. So in the second is drop. So we can remove the database on the data. So drop database, drop table. So alter is used to change structure. Suppose I have made my column size 20. I want to increase 25. So I have to use alter command. Alter command is also used to add a new object to the database table. Suppose I have a table having 2 columns. If I want to add a 3rd column, I'll say alter table, add subject of data type of varchar is to store the character fields. Then I have to truncate is to remove all the rows. Truncate is used to remove all the rows from the table and free the space. At last we have rename. So when I say SP, you have to rename, it means I want to change the name from A to B. So I have to use the SP underscore rename. SP underscore rename is the procedure name. So SP underscore rename is the procedure name. SP means stored procedure. stored procedure given by the system. Stored procedure and function total name is sp underscore rename. It takes two arguments, old table name, new table name. I want to change a to b, then I have to say sp underscore rename a comma b. So we have to make sure that make sure that this b is not available in database already. So when you trying to change, so two objects will not have the same name in the database. So first name is a, I want to modify it as b. So I'll say sp underscore rename is a system procedure. sp means stored procedure. sp means stored procedure. sp means stored procedure. sp underscore rename. sp underscore rename is, and how to execute a stored procedure? How to execute a stored procedure is by using command called as exec. exec is a command. exec is a command used to call a stored procedure. What is a stored procedure? We'll say in data. Stored procedure is nothing but a few SQL lines enclosed in an object. Few SQL lines embedded in a object. That object is called a stored procedures. Stored procedure will have some parameters, input, output parameter, etc. But we'll see at later stage. So we are using this. We are talking about stored procedures only because at this moment, because we have something called as the rename function. The rename will change the object name. Again, we at the DML. At the DML, we have three types. This is used to modify the data. It is used to modify. It is responsible for performing all type of data modification table. So we have basic three constructs which allow database program and users to enter data, and we are insert, update, and delete. So insert is used to save the details into a table. See, insert is a command used to save the data into a table. So, for example, I want to insert in the student table for student roll number, student name. I'll say insert into student roll number, first name, last name, and values. Values means actual the end user's input. So student table is having three columns in this case: roll number, first name, and last name. Now I have to provide the values. 60 is my student roll number, Tom, and etc. Update is to modify the value of a column in table. Okay, update the value of a column in table. So update what you want to update some table. You're setting a new value. You're setting a new value where based upon some condition. Okay, this update is to at this point don't try to be worried about the syntax. Only update is used to think. And the delete is going to remove one or more record from a database table. And the data conversion language includes commands like grant and revoke, which are useful to give rights and permissions. These permissions control the parameters of the data system. Suppose grant and revoke. If I grant some rights to you, only you can see it. And if I want to undo it, I can see use revoke. So command used to give permissions and revoke. TCL we have here commit is to save all the database to the database. Rollback is to undo your transactions that are not being saved to database. So if I say rollback, your data will not be stored in database. It will be undo. And same thing is the transaction, anything in transaction we want to make it a temporary save, then we have to use a save point. And we have only one command. We have only one command in the DQ, that is data query language, that is select. To select is select command is to get the information on the system. So the command helps you to select the attributes based on the condition specified with a where clause. At a high level, we'll see the summary. SQL is a database language designed for the retrieval and management of the data in a relational database. So it is a language used to talk to database for retrieval and management of the data. It helps the users to access the data on the system. So in 1974, first time term SQL query language was appeared. Then we have here 5 types here. DDL, data definition language; DML, data manipulation language; data control language; we have transaction control language, TCL; and data query language. Data definition language helps you to define the database structure of the schema. The data manipulation language allows you to modify the data by inserting, updating, and modifying it. In the DCL, we have grant and revoke, used to authorize users to do some operations. And when using with the transaction, we have some commands like commit, rollback, and save point. And in the last, we have only one command in the DQL, that is the data query language used to fetch data in the database. Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.